All right, let me say a special good afternoon. So for some of you, it may be already good evening. So if that is the time in your neck of the wood, let me say a special good evening. And I know maybe some of you not ready morning time. So whatever your timing is in your neck of the wood, let me say a special greetings and welcome to each and every one of you. This is the 2-hour program each and every Sunday that is hosted by the Civic Vibes out of Dominica. Each and every Sunday, that Civic Vibes team basically come and put together for you a very interesting conversation, especially about country, especially about rights, especially about whatever it is that is on your mind based on your feedback. And this afternoon promises to be yet another very, very interesting afternoon, very informative that is. So as we're about to take flight this afternoon, I realize we're at least 10 minutes late, but you know what they say, it's rather late than never. And so, yes, we are here. We have two formidable guests in our presence this afternoon in the name of Mr. Dwyer Astafan out of St. Kitts and Nevis, and also Miss D. Giselle Isaac, Antigua and Barbuda. And so, yes, we are kind of roaming the region, as it were, this afternoon. So please tell a friend, call someone, tell them that Civic Vibes, we are live right about now. And so what we ask of you at this time, please share that live. Because the information that will be dispensed this afternoon, if you miss it, then you may have yourself to blame. As well on the Civic Vibes team, we have Paula Celestine. She's here this afternoon, flesh, looking very pretty as usual. So just before I go to our guest here on the program, let me just ask Paula to just basically give her opening remarks, as it were, as the co-host of this program. Paula, good afternoon to you in a very special way. I think we just you're right on.
Yes, good afternoon to you, Lofty. How are you doing?
Doing very well, Paula. Thank you.
Okay, nice. It's been a while. I want to say blessed Sunday afternoon, each and every one. Yeah, you know what is here this afternoon. Be that you're doing whatever social media that you are with here. And I have not been here for a while, so I want to make a little apology as well. Sometimes when you have things to do, you just have to do them. And I have been up there a few Sundays trying to do some work on the field as well. You may want to say good afternoon. Yes, here. Miss Isaac and Mr. Astafans. Blessed Sunday afternoon to you all, and nice to have you on this afternoon. And as usual, we are expecting a very important program. So for our viewers, stick to your phone, your TV, whatever that you have, just stay tuning with us this afternoon. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Justin. Yes, thank you. All right, yes, again. Okay. Again, good afternoon to all the persons listening and watching to Civic Vibes at this time. Without further ado, thank you very much, Paula. Without further ado, let me move across to one of the panelists here this afternoon, esteemed people from the region. Across to Mr. Dwyer Astafan for his opening remarks, as it were. Mr. Astafan, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Duran. And if I may be allowed the liberty to suggest that it would be easier to call me Dwyer, because Mr. Astafan takes longer and we already started late. So the Mr. Astafan and the Miss Isaac and the Miss this and Miss that, let's try to save the minutes. At least in my case, please feel free to call me Dwyer. And thank you for having
that clearly well.
Lofty and I operate together on other media. And so it really is a pleasure to work with him. And of course, I know Giselle. Giselle is a very formidable personality in the Antigua political situation. I don't know Miss Celestine, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to get to know her now. And again, it's good to be able to share so that our people can be better informed, including ourselves, the participants. Information, knowledge, and the productive use of knowledge are the things that are going to take us as a region and as a people forward. And the mature discussion of it. So thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you indeed, Mr. Dwyer. Thank you very much for your opening remarks, as it were. Let me hop across now to another formidable guest among us here this afternoon. I see Mandiko Woman is written on her name there in terms of video. But good afternoon to you, Miss Isaac. A special good afternoon to you out of Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'm Giselle too. And, you know, we're all friends and family here. So Giselle is good.
Okay, so we're just keeping it nice and easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Giselle, in terms of a little, you know, just a brief introduction of who is Giselle Isaac. Can you just go ahead and give the listening public an idea just who Giselle Isaac is, please, as we start?
Well, at present, I am the chairperson of the United Progressive Party, which is the main opposition party in Antigua and Barbuda. I served as Speaker of the House for 10 years under the United Progressive Party administration from 2004 to 2014. I am a journalist, I'm an activist, I'm a patriot. Some would say I'm a disturber. And I'm a former political prisoner. I think that about sums it up.
That about sums it up. Well, I've heard you in terms of your deliveries already, and I know our fans, our friends, our listeners here this afternoon, they are all in for a treat based on what you'll be presenting here this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dwyer, in terms of just a little exposure, a little further exposure of yourself in terms of just a short introduction. Many persons know you, but there are some persons, I guess, that may just want to know a little more, just who is Dwyer. Can you go right ahead, please?
Well, I've been involved in just about everything you can be involved in St. Kitts without going to jail for it. Music, sports, community activities, politics. I got into elective politics in the early 1990s. I was successful to get into the parliament in 95, became a minister of government, served in the cabinet for 13 years, holding over the period a number of different portfolios, sitting in the parliament for 15 years, resigning from cabinet, continuing my political activism, which I do up till today. And I am also striving to be a good patriot, a responsible citizen, and to do what Jesus tells us to do. That means cleanse the temple when the temple needs to be cleansed. Mm-hmm. And I'm a regionalist as well. I believe that the destiny of the Caribbean cannot be fulfilled on a piecemeal basis. We have to work together, and we have to stop believing that we are big fish in small ponds and get our leadership mentality to be more humble, all-embracing approach, and put away the winner takes all mentality and the political tribalism that we have in the region. We are strategically very importantly located, and we are not using our strategic advantages at all, in fact. And what we're discussing here is part and parcel of this. We continue to operate like victims, feeding into the egos and to the greed of leaders and the cabals that they gather around them. And so we find ourselves in deep situations that could be easily avoided if we had a different mentality going forward. So that's me and what I do and how I look at things in a nutshell.
Right, indeed. And thank you for that nutshell statement, as it were, Mr. Dwyer. As we get the conversation going, let me just apprise the listening public and viewing public as well that this afternoon our conversation will be generally circulating around the programs in the region that we know as the CBI program. Some persons, I think in Antigua, they call it the CIP program. Lately, we have heard some very disturbing news for that program in particular, especially out of US and some of the European governments, especially in the wake of this war between Russia and Ukraine. In a nutshell, what these bigger countries and their governments, they are saying, the time has come for these programs in our region to basically, quote unquote, a break, as it will, on the way that we conduct things. So that is where our conversation generally this afternoon will be surrounded around. And that is where we would want the quote unquote expertise advice or expertise suggestion or, contributions from our two esteemed guests here this afternoon. And obviously, listeners, we are not leaving you out in that loop as well, because that conversation, it would mean very little without your input and suggestions or questions. So sometime during the course of this discussion, we'll be taking some time off to attend to your questions / comments / suggestions. So please feel free to drop them under the live link that you're watching now. Again, please share the live. Dwyer and Giselle, let us get the conversation started in terms of what is that CBI program, or what is that CIP program is like in your country?
I think Dwyer has the advantage here. He's been at it much longer than I have.
Yeah, but you never test quality by duration. If Stevie Wonder goes to the movies every night for 30 years, you never see what's on the screen.
Okay, Dwyer.
So I will yield to you, and then I'll cover it. I'll chime in.
Okay. Well, in Antigua and Barbuda, I have to admit that our CIP program, Citizen by Investment Program is how it's known here, is very much a secret to the residents of Antigua and Barbuda. How it is being operated is really not how it was conceived. And it gets more and more secretive as the years have gone by. I think that it has been a source of embarrassment for us a number of times. And overall, it is a disappointment to us in that those who supported it, those who were persuaded to support it, have not seen the benefit of it to Antigua and Barbuda. And we usually use as a source of comparison our neighbor, St. Kitts and Nevis, where there are good roads, where civil servants get double salaries at Christmas, and such other goodies. Here in Antigua and Barbuda, we don't know where it is spent other than what the Prime Minister, who is also the Finance Minister, chooses to tell us. There used to be, well, there is by law a reporting requirement. I think it's January and July. Is it January? I think it's January and July of each year, reporting on the previous 6 months. We're supposed to know the number of applications received, the number approved, the number rejected, the names of those who were approved, how much money is in the fund at the time, these details. And right now, not even the head of the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, who's the head of the opposition, can get that information. So we operate by hearsay, we operate by speculation, we meaning the public, and it seems that only the cabinet members know for sure how the CIP is operating. That's it in a nutshell.
Well, I while she was speaking, Giselle, I was just telling Paula here, my co-host here, is Giselle speaking about, I was just asking her rather, is Giselle speaking about Dominique? Because basically, the narrative that you give there, we were looking at Dominica all over it. Very secret.
And this can't be right. This cannot be right. I mean, a passport is a travel document, but citizenship is something sacred. As far as we are concerned, well, most of us are concerned, we had to be born to be Antiguans and Barbudans, right? And somebody can just come in and for, I think it's now down to something like 45,000 US, for $45,000 that we don't even know where it's going. We don't know that it will be any benefit to us as a nation, as individuals. you can just become me with the rights and, well, hardly the responsibilities, because the beneficiaries are not here to shoulder the responsibilities. So here we are. We had to be born to become Antiguans and Barbudans. We live here. We put up with the conditions, whether good or bad, the privations, the benefits, whatever. And as I said, for $45,000, less than you can buy a vehicle for, you can purchase citizenship and become like me. Something wrong with that?
Something's definitely wrong with that picture indeed.
We feel totally devalued.
Yeah. A lot of times when persons reference these programs in the region, they always talk about St. Kitts as being one way or the other. Your take, sir?
Well, I share Giselle's discomfort with the approach that is used in my country. They have a reporting requirement, as cosmetic as that may be, because she says they're not getting the data that is to be delivered to the country based on that rule. We don't even have that rule here. So it's a guessing game, even in the cabinet. I would hazard a guess and say that the cabinet doesn't have all of the details. And it usually sits in the breast of the prime minister and maybe one or two cronies around him. And we too have a lot of concerns with the way those funds are managed and how they are directed. You could take, and by the way, the CBI revenue exceeds tax revenue, which is one of the points we need to consider, certainly in the case of St. Kitts, and I'm sure in the case of Dominica and Antigua, if it may not contain or represent, the larger chunk of the government revenue, it represents a sufficiently large amount of government revenue for there to be concern about it. So our non-tax revenue is greater than the tax revenue. So even if the government screws up, which it does religiously on the taxation side, they come with money from the CBI and say, look, we have a surplus. And surpluses really don't mean anything. If my daughter is in need of critical medical care, and instead of expending that money on her, in the case of Antigua, the roads, the water supply, energy safety and security, and I could use those same examples in St. Kitts, hospital care, and a number of other things. It is better to spend your money on your sick daughter and not even to have a surplus than to let your daughter die and boast about having a surplus. It tells you where the politicians' heads and hearts are. And that is a very troubling thing. So the transparency is not there. And then when a prime minister can have allocated, I prefer to use the term arrogated because he's the Minister of Finance, in the budgetary processes, over $80 million into his ministry to plunge that into projects that pretty much he has control over. And he puts those monies into entities that can come from under the scrutiny of the formal audit processes. I'm trying to use my words carefully. Then the public loses sight or can lose sight of the funds that the government draws in for it. And while we collect a lot of money, maybe more money than Antigua, I don't know if more money than Dominica, but we collect and have been collecting for the last 12 or so years, maybe over $2 billion altogether in CBI money. And whereas some of that does go into infrastructure and projects that visibly assist the country, a lot of it is used for political purposes. And we have to put a stop to that. Now, I think the matter directly at hand is the one, and I expect you will lead us in that direction, Lofty, is the repercussions that we may be facing from the United States and the European Union as a result, they say, of the Russia-Ukraine problem. Let us not forget, and I won't get ahead of myself, I'll stop right now. Let us not forget that there have been efforts in the North to close down these programs for years. Let's not forget that. I'll leave it there for now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dwyer. As we get a little deeper into the conversation, let me just take a comment from the live as we move on. In terms of what you said, Giselle, someone is pointed out or someone is agreeing with you, and they're saying that is Didi Esther. She's saying, or he's saying, to Miss Isaac's point, a citizenship being sacred is a concept lost on these rogues passing as government in the region. There's another point as well someone made, and you just comment on this too, in terms of your comment thereafter, Giselle. Something you can buy a vehicle for, that person is asking in very surprised terms and tones. You can either buy a vehicle or citizenship for that amount. That person is saying that is not good. Basically just agreeing with the point that you made here, how citizenship is regarded by some of us in the region.
Well, as I said before, this is not how it was conceived. The Citizenship by Investment Program was actually introduced under the United Progressive Party. And the expectation then, and this was not just expectation, it was in law, was that persons looking for a second citizenship would invest here. I mean, the word investment is part of the program. And you had a number of options into which you could invest, and these were meant to be beneficial to the country. There was also a residency requirement because it was expected that having spent money here, either in the real estate option or the National Development Fund option or the business option, you would be invested here in a way that was more than financial, that you would become part of the community. And if you look at the National Development Fund options, you can see that you could invest in sports, education, health, and so on. And because you were required initially to spend at least a week, at minimum a week here, we thought that over time, these commercial citizens would become, in actuality, part of the community. That was watered down and watered down and watered down and amended and eliminated until now they don't have to come at all. And so I don't know, because as I said, we have not gotten the reporting. So we're not aware how many people have actually invested in any of these. We believe the Prime Minister has said that most people have chosen the Development Fund option, which really is just making a deposit. You know, it's like a one-night stand, you know, and then you're gone. You get where you came from and then you're gone, which was not what it was meant to be. So I want to believe that had the UPP administration stayed in office, the state in which the CIP finds itself in Antigua and Barbuda would be much better, far the idea of immigration. Canada, I think it was in 2017, revoked our visa-free access. And that really was a jewel in the crown of the local CIP program, that Antiguans and Barbudans could just go out and buy a ticket and get on an airplane and visit Canada. And, that was taken from us after years and years and years. It went to show the loss of confidence in our program. Added to that, if you read the literature, if you read the current literature online, this is not even the legislation now, it talks about high standards of investigative processes, due diligence, and they're looking for people of the very best character. I remember in an interview with some US media house, our prime minister talked about going after the creme de la creme. That has not been so for us. We have had people with dubious character, people with all kinds of question marks before and behind their names, people who have been involved in criminal activity, being not only citizens of Antigua, but in some instances, representatives, envoys, ambassadors. So the whole due diligence is being brought into question, or has been brought into question. And as I said, we have been brought to shame on more than one occasion because of persons to whom we have given our identification, our identities, because to me, it's more than a passport.
Giselle, in putting that program together and when it was promoted, thank you for your thoughts thus far on that. Someone sent me a note, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't ask you the question based on what the person said to me in writing. And the person said, we spoke and voted against the passport selling bill when our UPP government brought it to Parliament like a thief in the night. That is an Antiguan and Barbudan talking to me via message when the program was promoted. Can you just, respond to that person in terms of what these allegations?
Well, there are people on our side, or UPP side, who believe we lost the election in 2014 because of public disaffection with the introduction of the CIP program. And it is they're on record, they're on video, they're in audio, they're everywhere. Members of the current administration, the Labour Party administration, preaching against it, marching against it. No selling of passports, not my passports. I mean, the calypsos were sung about it and so on. And so I believe that we paid the price for having introduced a program, even though it was well intended, even though it was brought in at a time when we were just coming out of the global economic crisis, and the crash of Stanford, and the loss of the British-American CLECO investment here. So we had like a triple whammy in Antigua and Barbuda, and the then government did not feel that it could tax the citizens in order to raise more revenue. So this was a non-taxable means of raising funds. And as I said, the checks and the safeguards, the balances were very well thought out. In the first go-around, the bill did not even pass because the Senate didn't pass it. And so it came back to the lower house, and I can talk about it because I was there. It came back to the lower house, certain amendments were made, and then it went through just in time for the ALP to inherit it. But I don't understand the thief in the night thing, because this was no thief in the night. All bills under the UPP, all proposed legislation would have been publicized, so we would have known that this thing was proposed initially by the current Prime Minister Gaston Brown when he was in opposition. He was the first person to bring it up in Parliament. And at the onset, the UPP, then government side, balked at the idea. Well, they did their research, they did their homework, and they said, okay, we will go into it in these areas. So the rejection by the Senate on the first go-around was not a fly-by-night or undercover thing. It was huge news in Antigua and Barbuda. I mean, it altered the course of the UPP's history. It created a faction within the party. And as I said, it ran out of time that year in Parliament. So it had to be taken over into the new session of Parliament. So I don't understand that person, an Antiguan no less, saying that it came like a thief in the night. I absolutely categorically reject that. If you go online and you Google this thing, the Senate rejection of it, the careers that went down because of it, and so on, you will see this was no thief in the night event, not at all.
All right, well, thanks for your rebuttal. Thanks for your response on the record. That is, just before I let my co-host chime in here with her contribution, I'm asking Dwyer that question, and I guess it will come to you in a while, Giselle, because some things are happening in Dominica. They are very peculiar by nature, whereby our CBI funds, the funds that are generated from that program, they are not accounted for properly.
Mm-hmm.
They are not placed into the fund that the Constitution calls the consolidated fund.
Mm-hmm.
These CBI generated funds are, I'm saying now, stored somewhere else outside of that fund. So the question to Dwyer first, then you after. How are you guys accounting for your funds? Where are those funds held? You know, so that the Dominican people could get a much better understanding in terms of you guys' accountability of those funds. Dwyer.
Well, you're asking me a question that I'm not able to answer. The situation here is not substantively different from that in Dominica. Now, if the law stipulates that it can be placed into a fund other than the consolidated fund, that is possible because governments operate more than just the consolidated fund. It's a non-tax revenue stream for the country, but it must be there. When we have our budget reports and so forth, and the reports of the director of audit, you get some information on it, but it is not sufficient. The problem we have is not dissimilar to the problem you have. And in fact, it seems that we are following your bad example. For example, there is a project right now for a prison to be built under the Citizenship by Investment Program. I don't have a problem with it, the concept. The problem I have is that the government has authorized a company, which is a Chinese company doing business here, that has been trying to complete a resort project here for nearly 10 years, has not completed it. And the government has signed up with this company to build the new prison, to issue 4,000 citizenships at $175,000 each, which is 700 million US dollars. The applications will be made to the company. The payments will be made to the company. The facility will be owned by the government, but the applications will be made to the company. The company will pass the due diligence processes to the Citizenship by Investment Unit to administer. But at the end of the day, let us presume the prison with all of its costs, main and ancillary costs, coming up to say $300 million. It means that a developer could end up with 400 million US dollars from the construction of a prison for the people of the country of St. Kitts and Nevis, money which should go into a government account and be used to help build the platform to the new economy and society of the country. These are things that we consider to be unacceptable abuses of the system. And I'm sure you've had similar problems with residential and resort developments in Dominica. We have one of those that is also being proposed. As Giselle pointed out, you have citizenships being granted for $45,000, and this isn't the real estate option, which has a threshold in the law, a minimum of $200,000. So people are playing with it, and the country is losing the benefit of it. And the transparency is not there insofar as the citizens are concerned. So we have a lot to worry about. And now to compound the felony, not to accuse anybody of any criminal activity, but to compound the felony, then we have these problems we now have to face from the US and the EU.
May I?
Yes. Go right ahead. Yes.
Well, before I even get to the problems of the US and the EU, let me answer the question that you asked first about where the funds reside. Like many others, like the statutory corporations, the money that's earned does not go into the consolidated fund. That's not unusual here. Because, for instance, medical benefits, Social Security, the Board of Education, and so on, these are statutory corporations, and there are others that have their own bank accounts. What is expected is that at the end of every year, audited statements will be laid, or at regular intervals, audited statements will be laid before the Parliament. And the Public Accounts Committee, of course, will have access to these reports. In the case of the CIP, as I said, we have not gotten reports for years now. A few years ago, Loftus, there was a commercial on radio, a public service announcement, I suppose you'd call it, in which the narrator said, you know, your CIP funds at work, we're using it to do this, do that, to do the other. We've, you know, over $1 billion have been spent on these programs and projects, and CIP is working for you. So people started to talk about it and say, wait, $1 billion? What have we seen? What can we touch? What building can we walk up to and say, this is what CIP bought? What roadway has it built? What education program has it introduced? And so on and so forth. And immediately after, the ad was pulled. And the Prime Minister, who is the finance minister, began backpedaling and saying, oh, you know, it's not really $1 billion. So that's the last we heard of how much money had been collected, and this was years ago. And as I said, the reports are no longer published so that we can see where it's spent. But among those reports that were published a few years ago, and I think the last time I saw one could have been back in 2018. I think it's that far back. Definitely not since the pandemic. So it could have been as far as 2018. We saw things and people on this list of payees that our eyebrows just like shot into the stratosphere, because we could not believe that this is what CIP funds were being spent on. People reimbursing people for burying their mother and so, right? Rewarding police officers, agricultural projects for senators that nobody has ever seen. None of these things have come to fruition. And so people were outraged and started to say, well, you know, whose benefit is this? Is this a slush fund for the cabinet? And, you know, their defense was, if we didn't have this, government revenues would not be sufficient to do all the things that we're doing. But so many things remain undone. And $1 billion was years and years ago. So we have to have passed the 2 billion mark, even though we've dropped the cost of the CIP program, like we have in fire sale. In addition to that, the government went to Parliament and made some adjustments so that persons acquiring CIP citizenship could pay through offshore banks. And and through cryptocurrency. We don't know how that has worked out. So we don't know if all the money is in an offshore bank, some of the money, what percentage of the money, we don't know. And like Dwyer alluded to, we have had so-called investors here who have been, as part of their package, given a number of passports to sell. They are not agents as we know agents. And we have had at least one of these people, a principal of the West Indies Oil Company, who reportedly was given 120 passports to sell. I'm not sure who would keep the money. I don't know. We don't know. But this man was taken from Hong Kong, a hotel in Hong Kong, by the Chinese government, mainland China government, at least 4 years ago. at least 4 years ago. We have not heard of him. We have not seen him or anything since. I don't know whether the 120 passports were sold, returned, put under a bed, thrown overboard. We have no idea. And we have had several instances of other people who, as I said, have been given the title of envoy, given not only our CIP passport, but diplomatic status, and they end up in trouble with the law on the other side of the world. The most recent one would be the Venezuelan envoy, Alex Moran. And there are others before him. So this is a mystery to us. And it is a cause of unease and dis-ease among us that we don't know who is selling the passports. We don't know who is collecting the funds. What we do know, it is not for the benefit of Antiguans and Barbudans and those who reside here and pay their taxes.
Yeah.
Well, you are sure raising some eyebrows this afternoon. I can tell you that to read this program in Antigua and by extension, St. Kitts and Nevis. Let me just, before we continue here, let me just let Paula Celestine chime in here because she has been listening and taking notes, and she too want to chime in on the discussion. Paula, yes, go right ahead, please.
Yes, and
Let's just speak
Giselle and Mr. Dwyer. I've been sitting here and listening to the both of you. And I'm shaking my head because I'm saying, this is Dominica. I was thinking at one time with the CBI program in other countries that it has done a lot. But after listening to both of you here this afternoon, I'm saying, this is Dominica. I want to ask the question to both of you. You all must have heard a lot about MMC, Anthony Hayden, where our CBI passports actually are being sold. And these monies are out of Dominica. If not, maybe most of it, maybe all of it, as a matter of fact, because we have heard about billions of dollars. I want to ask the both of you this afternoon, is the CBI program money being managed by a foreigner? Because we've seen here in Dominica that if not all of the projects that is being done according to the person who sits in the chair as Prime Minister, that this project is being done from CBI, sale of passports, and we have Anthony Hayden, MMC, who actually manage these projects. And Anthony Hayden is the man who controls the CBI money here in Dominica. So I'm asking, Antigua and St. Kitts, are you all CBI money? Is it a foreigner that actually controls this money? Thank you.
I don't know, and that's the truth. As far as we are aware, CIP funds are controlled by the Prime Minister, who is the Finance Minister, and there is a CIP unit, a CIU, they call it, a Citizens by Investment unit, and that's staffed with a CEO, for want of a better word. There are board members and so on. But I think the final decisions and how the money is spent would come from the finance minister and his cabinet colleagues. But since I cannot give you a definitive answer, this is as far as we believe. And the monies that are collected by persons who are given passports to sell, the investors who are given passports to sell, I don't know where that money goes. I don't know if we get a percentage of it. I don't know if we get any of it at all. It seems to me that what the government has been doing in Antigua is giving these so-called investors passports to sell with the understanding that the money they make from the passports will be the money that they put into the investments. So an investor comes and says, I have a project, and the government says, oh yeah, okay, this sounds good. We want you to do that project. Here's the passports, make your money out of our passport money, and then you can do the investment and it's yours. That's how it seems to me in Antigua and Barbuda. That's how it seems to not work, because I've not actually seen any evidence of it working as yet.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think sorry.
Yes, any further comments, Doya?
Our situation might be a little different, although similar in some circumstances. the normal thing with the real estate option is that suppose Loftus has a project, it gets approved as a citizenship by investment project. He sells his units for $400,000, or you could have two persons buying in at $200,000 each. They have to pay him for the unit. He and his buyers have to produce documentation to evidence that the transaction has taken place and that the money is in escrow. That in itself is an exercise that needs to be very thoroughly examined, because they can say the money is in escrow and it could be Lofty having that money from his account placed in escrow on a revolving basis, because very often they sell not even a unit, they sell shares in a unit, which opens up other cans of worms, because if you're doing 50 or more units, then you have to establish a public company. You have to get some standing on the Eastern Caribbean Securities Commission, and you become you become covered by the Securities Act. And a number of these things are happening without the law being complied with. So you get the money to do the project, but what has happened is the real estate option has become mongrelized. And so instead of spending the $200,000, you sometimes pay 45 and 50. An agent will get some money. The government will get its administrative fee. And I was told by somebody who's in a decision-making position, when I asked this question, I said, look, these people are not, the right amount of money is not being spent. That is why these projects are not being completed or completed on time. And the response I got was, the government is not going to involve itself in a private deal. I said, well, hold on a second. Who is the regulator? The purpose of this transaction is to ensure that there's development to the country, so that there's opportunity to the country for businesses and for workers, whether skilled or unskilled, lawyers, insurance, truckers, whatever the case may be. So you can't be telling us that it's not the business of the regulators to get in. So there's a lot, and I could go on and on and on. It would take hours. There is too much wrong with the programs and not enough will. And you asked Paula, who controls the money, whether a foreigner or a local? Let me just suggest to you that even if it is a local, it could be a local who is controlled by a foreigner. So you see, this thing is all about, unfortunately, and to me, the saddest element of it is that our people are not sufficiently informed. And so they follow these politicians, they get some crumbs from the table, and they feel that all is fine and dandy. But when they turn on the tap, they can't get water. When they turn the light switch, they can't get lights. The hospital can't provide them with basic needs. Mind you, enough money theoretically is passing through the system to satisfy the needs of all of these elements in our and institutions in our community to make us a successful working country. You can't tell me, Giselle, that in 12 years, over $2 billion passed through, and I'm using the terms passed through. I don't know where the money gone. Passed through the Antiguan economy. And you still have sometimes 3 and 4 days when you can't get water and electricity. I mean, it's a joke. And our people, the sad thing is the joke is on us. Our people are not seeing through that. And they're still following politicians who are doing that to them. And the politicians are not themselves struggling by any means. They drive BMWs and big Hummers and their own vast tracts of real estate, and they wear Gucci and all of these things and so on and so on. And they catch the man in the alley or the woman in the alley who wears the shirt and so on. So to me, this is part of a cruelty based on the lack of information and the lack of training of our people to understand that in a democracy, you as a citizen have to understand what's going on and you have to call the shots. And so there will, in an environment like ours, unfortunately, because we live here and we don't want to admit it, but it's true, in an environment like ours, we get easily taken advantage of. And we celebrate our own degradation. Passport is a classic example of it. You use the money for political pork barrel rather than for substantive development of the people. And the leaders, the decision makers, work hand in hand with ruthless people who come from outside with big ideas, and a lot of them have no money and they end up making a lot of money too. Let me tell you, there's another aspect very quickly of the citizenship program that some of us tend not to pay attention to, eh? And it's not the citizenship by investment, it's the citizenship by marriage. Because a lot of people get married to our citizens. That's the poor man's route to citizenship.
Before we go, okay, go ahead.
We have a Nigerian guy, well, he's in prison in Los Angeles, a fraudster, defraud lots of money. He got married to a Kittian girl, a fake marriage, 2,000 EC dollar investment.
Wow.
As against 400,000 US dollars. Fake marriage, fake everything. He got his passport in 19 days.
19?
19.
Wow.
So that's an aspect you have to look at to Lofty, a new area for your investigative exercises.
Sure.
And of course, once they show that certificate of citizenship, they're going to register to vote, eh? I just thought I'd put that, but that's a side issue. Important, but a side issue. So the thing is, the transparency is not there. The accountability is not there.
Thank you, Dwyer. Yes, Giselle,
I just wanted to add something to Paula's question.
Yes.
We had a gentleman who had worked in immigration in Canada who was running the Citizenship by Investment Program. And we understand, told the government that the way they were spending the money was not right. And so the government, the cabinet told him basically, mind your business. You don't run things here. This is a country that is run by cabinet. You're not a cabinet member, stay in your lane. And the man packed up and left. And very shortly after he returned to Canada, we lost our Canadian citizen visa-free access. So nobody tells the cabinet how to spend money. Who writes the checks? I guess they're written locally, but who determines which checks are written? I don't know.
Now I have another side. To the discussion, but when we come to it, because I believe there's also some element of punitiveness in what is being done by these countries with regard to visa access and so on. I think there's an element of punitiveness.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a while, though. They haven't even touched on that big scenarios yet in terms of news coming out of the US in particular and the European governments. But I don't like playing devil's advocate, but save and accept for St. Vincent and the Grenadines in our region. Some persons may say, Dwyer, I hear you, Giselle, I hear you guys talking. But how are we going to do what we have to do in the region to do whatever that needs to be done to help our citizens, to build the economy, to build roads, to build schools, to do whatever? So that question I want to pose to both of you guys as we continue on the discussion, as to the persons who will be asking those questions. If not the CBI, then what?
Mm-hmm. You want the answer now?
Well, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, as I said earlier, the CBI is the biggest single source of revenue to the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. The CBI should have been used to create the platform for a new economy. It is clear that the CBI is not going to be available to us forever. That is clear. It is clear that we have not directed the benefits of the CBI and used those benefits to set the platform. For example, food safety and security, topsoil management, watershed management, coastal management, energy security, water safety, education, health. These things, the foundation. Just think of Singapore, countries like Singapore. Think of Rwanda, how Rwanda has prioritized its issues. And we now have the benefit of, for what to us is a lot of money that is being wasted, and now we're putting ourselves in jeopardy with the Europeans and the North Americans. In addition to that, and as an alternative to that, because we can't rely on that forever. We used to rely on bananas forever. You remember that? And sugar and tobacco and tourism and monoculture economies are dangerous things. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So we need to be doing other things. Research and development, science and technology, robotics, food, medicinal plants, intellectual property things, the creative arts. There are a number of other things we can do. And our education system needs to be evolved. It needs to be molded to prepare the people for the new economy. But most importantly, Lofty, we are not preparing the people for the new attitude that is required in order to go into the new economy and new society that will allow us not just to survive, but succeed. It is business and politics as usual. Those are the things we need to do. If you take $1 billion from the CBI and put it in programs that are the same programs, which are failing programs, children doing 1460 subjects, but can't solve problems on their own and not thinking. The other children who can't make the 14 subjects, who are regarded as academic collateral damage, and they become social liabilities. Your social and economic productivity levels fall. The variety of skill sets you get fall. The dependency on politicians continues. The entitlement mentality continues. Then no amount of CBI money is going to put us in a stronger position. Now we have to make sure that that attitudinal change takes place. And I am not seeing that. I'm not seeing enough of that. I'm seeing it in Rwanda. We thought we were doing it here in St. Kitts 7 years ago when we changed to a new arrangement called the unity government, which, as it turns out, was just a different set of hands doing not just the same crap, but worse. And so we now have to go and try again and get something better.
Indeed, guys, I realize we are just about the hour mark, halfway mark of the program already. Normally around this time, we normally take a little break, take a little musical break, that is. This week, Tuesday, that is as well, the world will be celebrating our ways, World Waters Day on Tuesday. So during that course of the break, we'll be putting up a slide just to remind persons of that day, which is Tuesday coming up, that is designated as Wood Thursday. So we're gonna take a little break, gentle people, and we'll be right back in just a bit. When we get back, Giselle, I see you have a big smile. Question is on you as well when we get back. If not CBI in Antigua and Barbuda, then what in terms of production and productivity? When we get back, we'll be right back in just a while.
Okay.
Right, and again, we want to thank all those persons who are glued with us this afternoon as we're having a very important discussion about the programs in the region known as our passport selling programs. We have with us this afternoon as our guests via Astafan out of St. Kitts and Nevis, and also Digizelle Isaac out of, that is Miss Digizelle Isaac, Antigua and Barbuda. And so far, they have done a formidable job thus far. Matter of fact, we haven't even touched the topic that we rarely come to speak of this afternoon, is the news that we got out of the UK and the US that they're looking to crack down on those programs that has been sustaining the governments in the region. We'll be getting into that in the second leg of the program. But Miss Giselle, back to you. If not, we have heard that talk in Dominica by the man who sits in the chair of Prime Minister Roosevelt Scary. He says, if not CBI, then what? I ask you the same question, your country as well.
Before I answer that, I will explain to you why I gave that big smile.
Okay.
You said Tuesday is World Water Day, Groundwater Day?
Yes, Tuesday. Tuesday.
Well, Tuesday in Antigua is the people's protest of the price hike in gasoline and diesel. We can't celebrate World Water Day because we don't have it. In 2022, after $2 billion, we hardly have water in the pipes. And all we ever hear is that the government is making more with these reverse osmosis plants. So they are buying plants at great cost, commissioning them, but we still are getting the water. So I don't know who the water is being sold to or where it's leaking, but it's not getting to the people. Anyway, so that was why I smiled so broadly. So I was looking at the comments on the live feed, and there is one person who says the question should really be answered by asking, well, if no CBI, what? Then what happened before CBI? What did we used to do before? And I was very pleased to see a comment here actually from my daughter who's overseas and watching and listening. And she said, these programs are completely compromised and do not serve the best interests of the people. Investors can be encouraged to come to our shores without being made citizens. Further, at what point do we as Caribbean people, in all our ceremonial nonsense and chest beating of independence, stop looking outward for every single infrastructural development and job creation and start making moves for our people ourselves. And I mean, I couldn't have said it better. At what point are we going to look inwards? At what point are we going to give people the opportunities that we give outsiders? So if there is no CBI, and I do believe that there will be no CBI soon, in Antigua and Barbuda, they're already making moves to, this guy is the thing. They're saying they're going to have a residency and citizenship program that is identical to that of the United States, whereas you can have residency without surrendering your nationality. It's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, right? We have sullied our own waters. These programs could have worked. And for all that Dwyer is saying, in Antigua and Barbuda, by comparison, we consider that it has worked to a large degree. I'm not going to get into their national politics. I don't know everything. I have to trust Dwyer on what he's saying, and I do. But at least in Antigua and Barbuda, at least in St. Kitts and Nevis, they can point to actual projects, investment, infrastructure, and so on, and say, our CIP dollars at work. We can't do that in Antigua and Barbuda. Look, Loftus is a big joke here, right? Since 2017, I think it was $2 million from the CIP fund were assigned to a new cemetery. We're looking all over Antigua for the cemetery. We're digging under the earth to find the cemetery, right? We saw 1 year they had the money for the cemetery, another year they gave money from CIP for the plans, the design of the cemetery. Right now, the main cemetery can't even accept any more corpses. They're taking up the countryside churches all over Antigua, they're burying people down. I sure when the Jumbi, then wake up, they look around and wondering where they be, right? Because we still can't find this cemetery years ago that actually got an allotment. We have the check number and everything.
I was just saying you guys might have to do a special mass or some kind of exorcism.
To raise that dead? Maybe we will. But, getting back to what I was saying, here we are depending on something so strongly that wasn't there before. And you must ask, well, what did we do before CIP? What did we do? Because we're going to have to get back there quick, fast, and in a hurry. In Antigua and Barbuda, the Prime Minister said last week, we will not be as hard hit by the loss of the CIP because we have only 10 to 15% of our revenues coming from the program. Whereas St. Kitts and, I don't know about Dominica, but I think he mentioned St. Kitts, they are more than 50% or about 50% dependent on revenues. I don't know if it's true. He says 10 to 50%, but if we don't know how much we're getting from CIP, how can we know the percentage and the damage, the loss of it can do to our economy? We don't know. What we do know is that if we are going to pursue investment, we have to go back to the model that the UPP used to use. Because any Antiguan, any conscious Antiguan can give you a string of investments promised under the current administration, including from CIP holders that have not come to fruition. And by contrast, the UPP, who when it left office had granted citizenship, I think, to 6 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least we had a record of achievement of projects actually coming here, being seen on the ground, translating into jobs, translating into tax dollars for the economy and so on. We're going to have to go back to relying on our ingenuity, on our good sense, on our location, on our political and financial stability, and look for credible investors outside and incentivize investors inside. And I think a lot of people, including a lot of young people, are looking for that level of investment. We had instituted in Antigua and Barbuda an agency called the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority. And we went to Parliament and we passed a law and we said, these are the concessions that attend investment. So if you invest in $500, this is your level of concession. If you invest in 5,000, this is it. If it's 5 million, this is it. That has been thrown out of the window where now politicians, cabinet members individually negotiate, not only for the country, but for themselves. And I think the self comes before country. And so a lot of these things have not happened. They've not materialized. We have to go back to doing the elbow work, the hard work, the sitting people down and planning and seeing what we can put in as investment. And one of the things that in Antigua and Barbuda we are looking towards in terms of the changes, when an investor comes and says, I want to do a project, we must be in the position to say, we are part of the project. If we are putting in the land, we must be part owners of this project. We're not selling you anything. This is our investment. So it becomes a project of the people and for the people. So a joint enterprise, so to speak. We're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to look at all these young people in particular who came out during the pandemic left us. We saw a horde of young people coming out, doing things for themselves, doing business in a different way than we have seen before, because literally business as we knew it was shut down. So they created business unusual. And I think these are the people who deserve our efforts, who deserve the government support, who deserve the path being made straight for them. Because when the ships stop coming, when they stopped docking during the pandemic, when the planes stopped flying here, it was these small and medium-sized businesses that kept the wheels of the economy going. And if we can grow them from small to medium, from medium to large, we are creating not only employment, but investment. We have to start to look to do hard work and stop looking the cheap and easy way out that compromises us and in the long run puts us into trouble.
So am I getting you right in terms of you're saying maybe, just maybe, if there are new persons at the helm, new drivers behind the wheel, as it were, then some of these programs can be redone or revamped, as it were, to the benefit of the people? I
don't even think we're going to get a chance to revamp them. I think they're going to be shut down. I absolutely believe they're going to be shut down. And it should come as a wake-up call to us that the EU, the US, the UK, Canada, they do things in their interest. They do things to protect their people. When are we going to look at ourselves and say, let's protect us for a change?
Sure. Sure. Thank you for your thoughts. Yes, let me just let Paula chime in there, and then we're going to get to the question in a while with the news coming out of it. Yes, Paula, go right ahead.
Yes, Ms. Isaac, you said that the leader of Antigua and Barbuda said that is a very small percentage of the passports that was being sold. But I was listening to I think it was either maybe a news conference or something like that, from the man who sits in the chair as Prime Minister of Dominica, sometime either on Thursday or Friday of this week. And he was saying we should never allow the CBI program to die, because this is one of the largest income that we have coming in the country. Now, Dominica, an agriculture country, we had a lot of bananas and all of this. We had a lot of factories where maybe, if not all, most of them have been closed. And we have not seen the CBI money doing anything that is kind of productive to create employment, especially for young persons. So when I listened to him and he was saying we should never allow the CBI program to die because Dominicans will definitely suffer. So I'm saying when we have leaders like this and all they bank on is on selling our passports to crooks and criminals, and we have rich soil, we have all of this water, we have rich fertile soil, and we are not exporting anything. And we have a leader who can say this. This is a leader who have already said that I am a failure to the nation. So I am happy that you actually said about the percentage and what the leader of Antigua and Barbuda actually spoke about in terms of the CBI passport. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Paula, for that vital and valuable contribution there. Dwyer, you mentioned something a while ago about, you were touching on the sort of the punitive aspect of the, yes, the punitive aspect of the news, that we woke up to about 3 weeks ago out of the UK and the US. Can you just elaborate on that, please, as we kind of now narrow down into that segment?
Yeah, well, Giselle alluded to it. These countries operate in their own interests. Now, I don't agree with Paula if she is generalizing, and I'm going to presume that she is not. I don't agree that we're selling our citizenships in general to crooks. There are some crooks, and there are some wheelings and dealings that take place. No excuses for that. That happens everywhere. Everywhere. The Canadians have a residency program that leads to citizenship. The British have a residency program that leads to citizenship. The residency program, for example, in Britain begins with a £2 million investment in some kind of entrepreneurial activity. And after 2 years, it's either 2 or 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. The United States has its EB-5 program. You invest either $500,000 or $1 million and you get citizenship. Most of the countries have some program, not most, but many, have some program in which you invest more money than in our citizenship programs, and you get citizenship. Crooks pass through those programs. Our due diligence arrangements, and we've made it very clear to the United States, for example, and to Britain and to Canada, that we can run our due diligence checks by them. Now, to do something like that is a little bit of a compromise of one's sovereignty, but we all know that, especially being small countries, there's some degree of compromise that has to take place in order for the minnow to survive in the water with the shark. And the minnow, smaller and weaker physically, has to be smarter than the shark in order to not just survive, but succeed. London, this thing about the Ukraine, you have a lot of talk about Russian oligarchs who have citizenship in these countries. And they're going to freeze their assets like they're doing with the assets of the owner of the Chelsea Football Club in London and so forth. The Russian oligarchs. Do you know the latest nickname for London? Giselle?
No, tell me.
London grad.
Oh, wow.
Leningrad West.
I see.
The London real estate some years ago was being gobbled up by Chinese billionaires. And that process was followed and taken over by Russian oligarchs. London is known as London grad. Most of the so-called laundered money in the world resides in Europe. Quite a bit of it resides in the United States. And I might have a jaundiced view of the whole thing, but it is the view that I have after 74 years living on this little planet. These people want to control everything. And if you have 1 or 2 or 5 incidents in which a poison fish gets into the pot, they'll make a big deal of it. But you can't make a big deal because you don't have the power of their 10,000 poison fish passing through the pot. So that all of the laundered money must reside in Europe, Switzerland, The Hague, the City of London, Delaware, Nevada, the so-called laundered money. And they determine what is laundered money. If you take money out of their tax system because you want to avoid taxes, if you're an American citizen, wherever you live in the world, I have a baby granddaughter. She's 5 months old, born in the United States. She has to file her tax returns. Well, of course, somebody has to do it for her. Okay? They want to collect all the money. They want to control everything. So these little countries, and I'm not trying to give a sub story here, but it's a fact. These little countries have a history of deprivation at the hands of people who have been depraved and greedy and controlling. The FATF and the OECD and the World Trade Organization are other manifestations of their commitment to control the world banking system, the SWIFT system, which now Russia is dodging, using the new Chinese system to get its banking transactions and its money moved. The short point here is that while we are culpable in a number of ways, these countries have to realize that we have to survive. And if citizens in other countries want to buy something that we can sell, and I hate to use the word sell in terms of citizenship, that provides advantages to them, and you're now saying we're going to block visa access to the Schengen countries, then what are we going to be left with? We as a region, I think, not just the countries that have citizenship programs, but we as a region, CARICOM, we need, Ron Saunders says he has written to some of the US congressmen. Now, while that may be admirable and useful, I think the connection has to be made at a higher level. Leaders to leaders, to tell these people, what are we going to do in the meantime? We educate our people. Yes, it is our fault. From the womb up to university level, and you take most of them, it is our fault while we can attract them back here, but you take most of them, we are at a disadvantage. We need some kind of arrangement, and there are none of these arrangements that help us. They're all designed to feed more food into the mouths of these greedy countries and greedy powers, and to keep us on our knees. And we have to, in my opinion, we have to take a stand and say, look, and I think the governments have said so. I heard your prime minister say it. I don't know if he stuck to his word. I've heard our prime minister say it. If you want to see the due diligence that we're doing for our citizenship, fine. But I happen to know Giselle and Paula and Loftus and our viewers that in the EB5 program in the United States, it is contracted out to people to administer. Those citizenship programs in those countries are geared to generate money and to attract people with money to those countries. Ours are the same, maybe not on as grand a scale, $10 million investment, 10 million pound investment and so. But we have to exercise some diplomatic efforts, put in some diplomatic efforts in order to try to save these programs. At the same time, we also have to change the whole approach in our countries in terms of education and social development, so that our people will understand that everybody can be a DJ, everybody can be an MC, everybody can be a politician. We need biologists, we need researchers. There's a guy in Jamaica. He researches a plant called the strongman bush. You know strongman bush? You call it guinea hen plant in Antigua?
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard of it?
Yes.
Okay. He has been able to arrest 5 different types of cancer with the use of the guinea hen plant. Research and development, medicinal plants, food and food processing, energy safety and security to cut costs and completely transform the economies. Mia Motley is doing that with private homes. We are not innovative. We in St. Kitts, we had a young, he's still here, a young Jamaican lecturer at our local college, an expert in robotics. He took a team of students to Dubai 2 years ago for a global competition in robotics. Global competition. St. Kitts and Nevis placed 26th in the world. If you did the same in Antigua or Dominica, you would get the same result because it's the same gene pool. We are not thinking. So what we want to do, go and be a waitress and a waiter and a beach bartender for the rest of our life? Even the tourism industry, we're not doing it right. We need more residential tourism. So instead of building 1,000 more hotel rooms, let's encourage 100 multimillionaires to buy luxury homes in a, say, a 50-acre area. Let them put money into the economy, more universities, health, tourism, technology, research and development. These are the areas we need to be in. Not all of this thing about the service industry and tourism. Everybody doing the same thing. So we are not thinking and preparing our people. So, and one last point. Although the contribution by the CBI in Antigua might be less to the economy than it is in St. Kitts, the loss of the CBI in Antigua could be more damaging to Antigua than the loss to St. Kitts, because we have done better with our money than you have done with yours.
Which is my point.
So it's
That
not
is
just, the percentage is not a fully determining factor. It's not definitive.
Mm-hmm.
So the point I'm trying to make very quickly, again, the Europeans and the North Americans are being punitive. They don't have the moral custodial rights over the planet. The global dynamic is changing, and you're seeing that with Russia and China. America may have problems accepting that. They have to adjust and adapt. But in the meantime, the punishment and telling us you're laundering money, we're going to do extradite you, we're going to do all of these things, they need to stop this. And of course, we, the people of these islands, need to raise our standards as citizens and stop electing scamps and vagabonds to lead us.
Dwyer, thank you for that, sir. As you were talking, right? As you were talking, just now, Paula, you'll chime in a while. There was sort of a pushback against what you were saying, and I guess the responsibility falls on me and Paula here to basically allude to you as to what some of the persons listening and watching they are thinking and saying. In a nutshell, some persons are saying that two wrongs don't make a right, and you are kind of double speaking, as it were. And they are saying that you are basically by your words this afternoon condoning some of the bad behaviors that especially our leaders in the region have been portraying.
But wasn't the last thing I said, Lofty, we must stop electing scams and vagabonds? That's condoning it? That's not the last thing I said?
Yes,
or maybe they made the comment before they heard me finish.
Before you said that, there was this going off. So I just let me run it.
Earlier I said, we have to stop this dependency on politicians, this entitlement mentality. We have to make a change. I'm paraphrasing. We have to change our approach to politics. We must be more responsible as citizens. So while I accept the comment, I don't agree because I'm not double speaking. So we have to stop electing scams and vagabonds. But we as citizens have to take responsibility. We can't just be blaming the politicians all the time. Who is putting them there?
Giselle, just before you comment, Paul, I want to chime in for sometime.
Okay, yes, Mr. Dwyer.
Hi.
Yes, Mr. Dwyer. When I spoke
Dwyer.
Some criminals with our passport.
Sorry?
You said about the investment that some of these people, and I bet to differ. Some of these people, like you are saying, you may not fully agree that they are buying our passports because you gave example of Canada and England. But some of these people have never even visited Dominica. They have absolutely no idea where Dominica is. I'm not sure if you will remember Montferrat and Madruque. These people are people who have our passports, and these people are crooks and criminals. I want to ask, what percentage of the people from the passports from St. Kitts that are being sold to the people in the Middle East? Because most of the persons who have our passports are persons who come from the Middle East. You're talking about Afghanistan, you're talking about Kuwait, you're talking about all these countries where these people who have committed offenses and they want to get away. What percentage of the persons in St. Kitts who actually have passports and they come from the Middle East? What percentage that you have from that area?
I don't know the answer to that. All I'm suggesting, Paula, is that it is very unlikely that the majority of the applicants are scamps. I am admitting, and I agree, some of them are scamps, and they should never have been allowed to get through. And if the due diligence slipped up somewhere and you find out, then you revoke the passport and stop it. So some of the scamps get through. But the same thing happens in England and Canada and New Zealand and the United States. Some of the scams get through there as well. I am not saying it's a good thing, but I'm saying it is not unique to us. And the same way you have people in decision-making positions in our countries who compromise the integrity of the office, the same thing applies in those countries as well. So while I'm saying we need to do better, I'm also saying that the people in those big countries have no moral authority to be preaching to us and telling us how naughty we are when they're worse than us. I'm not disagreeing with you. We don't want the scams. We don't want the scams.
And that is what we have.
And I don't believe they have to come and live here. In St. Kitts and Nevis, you apply, you don't have to visit the island, you don't have to live here. And I personally would prefer if they did not live here. Because if all of them or a significant amount of them came here to live, they would create a major socio-cultural disruption in the country and have an impact on the politics that we would never want to see happen in these countries. Let them stay where they are.
On
You
that
want all of
point,
them to come and live in Dominica? You want all of them to come and live in Dominica?
put them in a container and send them to us. We'll deal with them.
Or in a container? Well, that means they're dead by the time they reach.
Okay.
Ms. Giselle, you are there. You are there waiting. Go right ahead.
Yes, I wanted to just comment on something that Dwyer said. I agree with him that I don't think that the majority of the people who get these passports are crooks and scams. I don't think the majority of recipients by that. I think most of them are upfront for wanting the passport because it allows them to travel to places that ordinarily their nationality would deny them from accessing. That said, we small islands offering this thing, we don't have any power. No. So, and we knew that when we got into this thing. So for us to cry foul now and say the United States or the UK or the EU is taking advantage of us, they have the same program, they have the same crooks and robbers, and they are holding us essentially to a higher standard than they themselves can maintain. We knew all this going in. We always are at a disadvantage in our dealings with the outside world. It's just a fact. And knowing this, I think the people who we elected or elect to run our countries ought to have shown greater foresight. Because anything that is not profitable for those other countries is going to come to an end. Slavery was not ended because they saw the light. They didn't get religion. It wasn't, Saul on the road to Damascus having an experience and they said, wow, slavery is wrong. Slavery became unprofitable. Correct. And so the superpowers did away with slavery. Mm-hmm. What we ought to have done is used the CIP to our greatest advantage in the shortest possible time.
I agree.
And as Dwyer said, we should have invested those funds into areas and sectors that will bring greater returns, including and especially education and health, because we keep educating our brightest minds, as he pointed out, and sending them abroad to enrich these same countries that are taking advantage of us. If they're smart enough to enrich those countries, they're smart enough to help us out of the morass that we often find ourselves in. In addition to that, the people who are doing the electing, I agree with Dwyer, they're to blame. Because in our instance, the UPP introduced this program to Antigua and Barbuda with very clear-cut objectives, which were bastardized by the incoming administration and the present administration. So if you have the best and highest of ideals and plans and programs for your country, for this program or any other program, and you only have 5 years, and the ones who come in after the 5 years, reverse that. We are always going to be in this perpetual cycle of going nowhere. We need a long-term plan. Like how the Chinese planned for 100 years, we need to start planning for 5 years. We need national development plans that transcend partisan politics. So if we say we want to have a university or a satellite university in every CARICOM territory, it shouldn't change when the government changes. And that is what's wrong with our islands. We see it this way, we put the plans in place, you see it differently, you come in 5 years later, you change it. If it changes again 5 years later, this one tries to go back to where it was, we're back at the starting point. We need a master plan. We need to look at what we do best. Paula talks about the fact that Dominica can grow practically anything. Why isn't Dominica exporting more? Antigua was known for its black pineapple, which was dubbed the sweetest in the world. We're not even cultivating the pineapple for export anymore. If we have a niche, if we have an area of excellence, isn't it common sense for us to expand on it, develop it, make it viable, rather than saying, let's shut down all our other industries because we have CIP? So we, the people, are to be blamed for the people we elect without vision, and then they turn out to rob us and put us in a position that they themselves are not in because they have benefited handsomely from the CIP and the connections they made with these people, especially the crookish ones. We are the ones ending up the short end of the stick.
Thank you, Jason. You touched on a point a while ago that I just want to chime in on that the pettiness of our political affairs, especially in this region of ours, in that one government, for example, the UPP government would have an idea for country, and another government to take over, and basically they would just push that on the side and do something totally different, opposite to what the UPP had in mind to do for the country. And I know it all boils back to the people, as you say, but that is where I think the type of governance structure that we have in the region, it really doesn't suit the type of conversation sometimes that we have. You mentioned the Chinese. The Chinese, when they plan for countries, 100 years plus. So but their government, well, however they run their country in terms of the governance structure, it is much more suited for that kind of long-term development. I say that because the type of first past the post system that we have here, every man, every woman, when they are elected, they want to basically put a chip on the shoulder, as it were, and say, okay, it is all government that did that, all government that do that. And that is where now the education or the re-education of the people, now the mass, needs to be, has to have some more special focus on. And I agree with you on Dwyer in that aspect, in that once something is discussed and it is good for country, I think we the people should kind of reinforce that any government coming in, because I'm a supporter of yours or your party, you should not thrash aside some things that are in my interest in terms of development, even if it was proposed by the past regime or past government. And I think that is where, some of us, the citizenry, needs to take the flak, as it were, because when is our party, some of us sometimes we cannot see country. And I think that is what is really lacking in most of our jurisdictions.
And when we're going to stop? When are we going to stop? What is it going to take for us to stop? When are we going to put our children before our politicians?
Yeah. Good point.
Well,
Giselle,
are they teaching civics in the schools?
No.
Are they teaching personal development in the schools?
No.
Relationships, frustration tolerance?
No.
In Japan, in the early school system, the emphasis for the first 4 years or so is on development of the person as a citizen, individual in family, individual in society, the culture, all of the soft skills, while they inculcate in you the fundamentals of the STEM subjects and so forth. And you find the same thing in Singapore, you find the same thing in Finland. And if you do an analysis, you will find that the countries that have that approach, or some facsimile of that approach, are the most successfully governed countries in the world. And interestingly, a significant number of them are led by women.
That's true.
Just that you would know. So, all of this testosterone and this chest beating, and you have people, you see pictures of people, I see right here in St. Kitts, you have people who follow the money. If you are a trucker and you get in a couple of regular truck jobs from Giselle, and Giselle is the leader of Party A, and you used to be a very strong supporter of Party B, Left by Loftus, then you're going by Giselle. When things go dry with Giselle and Paula, who is head of party, to give you some, you're gone. Is what you could get for yourself now, rather than holding on to some kind of philosophy that is best for the country over the long haul. And you end up losing.
Absolutely.
But we're not taught these things. So everything becomes transactional,
Everything.
The politics, there's no aspirational stuff here.
No.
There's no philosophical stuff. There's no patrimony, patriotism, nothing like that. This is about me and now. Even relationships between men and women, or women and women, whatever your gender preferences might be, relationships are superficial. The devices have taken over. Social media has taken over. So we have more communication tools, but we have less significant and meaningful communication. You know, and you are easier to control and fool and manipulate in situations like that. So
we call it progress, Dwyer. We call it progress.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things we call wrong. That's one. That's not progress. That's degradation. That's degradation.
Yeah, indeed. Giselle, we heard at least give your prime minister that, or give him that. He basically came out and kind of put in perspective the news that we got out of these bigger countries where these programs are concerned. He was very worried about the quote-unquote draconian measures that this country should take against this program. A lot of persons are citing the war that is going on between Russia and Ukraine as being that catalyst that kind of, had these persons make that kind of a newsreel program. Any thoughts on that from you?
Well, the first thing you said, give him that, that he came out and said that the programs are under threat. Well, when I did my research, what I discovered is that the EU right now is targeting the countries in the European Union, like Malta and so on, that are offering these passports for sale, and not really the Caribbean, at least not yet. So I think it behooves us, when we see the neighbor's house burning to 8 hours, right? So it's just a matter of time before they come for us. So we need to start thinking of what we're going to do when it's gone, because we don't really have any power. We don't have any negotiating power. That's a fact. And I think the North American powers are highly suspicious of this region right now because of its association with China and with Venezuela. I don't see them being inclined to give us the breaks that we think we deserve because we're small, vulnerable, developing countries. So we need to start thinking of a plan B and a plan C right now. And I go back again to what I said before, and as somebody said in the chat, what did we used to do before? The world has changed so much in the last decade. How have we prepared? We watch the changes. We take part in the changes because we are a consumer society. But what have we done really to more than accommodate them? How have we sat down and looked ahead to see how this is going to affect us in the long term? Are we always just going to be satellites of a superpower? What does independence mean? What are we independent for or from? I mean, I don't have the answers. All I have right now are questions. But all of us need to be asking ourselves questions right now. Those of us who are in politics, those of us who are hoping to get into politics, those of us who vote people in or vote people out of politics. What's the long-term plan? All I ever hear in these regions is hotels. Let's build some more hotels. And then a pandemic comes, you can't even keep open the ones that you already have. What's the plan B? What's the plan C? What does CARICOM plan to do? CARICOM to me right now, Loftus, is almost it's just a name. I don't feel it as a functional entity. What is CARICOM doing? Rather than individual prime ministers writing to say to the US government, to the to the UK government, don't do this to us because. Where is CARICOM in all this?
Well, two things. First, I do not believe that we are without influence, provided we act as a region, because I don't think people can just come. Look at the situation right now. America is speaking to Venezuela about oil. Things change. Things change. I remember many years ago having a chat with. He was then Senator Biden. He was here vacationing. And I said, I was Minister of National Security at the time. And I said to him, you all have to stop taking the region for granted. Since the end of the Cold War, we've only become of incidental interest to you insofar as drug interdiction is concerned. We don't produce the drugs that come from the South, and we're not the consumers. Those are your people. And you cannot just treat us like that and expect things to go your way, because China and Russia are looking to expand their footprints.
Absolutely.
You have to try to find a way to work with us and to ensure that these islands get a fair chance of development, so that we could also reduce our dependency on immigration into your country and that sort of thing. Said, good idea. The Republicans are in. He even apologized for George Bush. He says, when we get in, it'll be better. So I believe as a region, if we stand together on Cuba, on Haiti, and on other things that to do with our survival. The Panama Canal passes this way coming east. We are about 1 million square miles just under the United States into South America. We have strategic value, but we're not using it. And the other thing you talk about is building hotels, and even building hotels. And then we import all the food for the hotels to eat.
Exactly. And Dominica sits here with its good soil. And Antigua with its good soil.
Everybody can grow something. When last have you been to New York?
Something.
When last have you been to New York?
I don't even have to go that far. Look at Bermuda. What do they grow? They don't grow anything.
They grow nothing. Well, what do they grow in Singapore?
Exactly.
Singapore is the size of St. Lucia. But what I'm telling you about New York is,
go ahead.
And anthuriums in New York sell for between $10 and $15 each. I mean, we could be doing things.
Exactly
we could be doing
what I'm saying.
So we can't go back to where we were.
We compete rather than collaborate.
That's the
so
point.
It's easy to pick us off one by one.
That's the point. And not only is there no CARICOM, but that institution, which is supposed to be the nerve center of our thinking and being a radical change agent in all facets of life, called UWI. UWI is in the ICU. When it comes to thinking, it should be a center of thinking in all aspects. What are we getting from UWI?
Well, I got into national trouble for saying that, so now I'll say nothing else.
Okay, well, let me get into trouble. It's okay.
Guys, we are already up to our 6 hour mark, or 6 o'clock mark, that is. And you know, time is always of the essence when we're having a conversation. But it would be remiss of us here if we don't go through some of the comments. So just please take note some of the comments that I'll be going through, some of the questions, comments, suggestions. And please feel free to chime in on them just before I ask you guys for your closing comments in just a while, okay? John Alfred says here, Roosevelt and Brown seems to be cut from the same cloth. Whoa, that person is saying. Daria Eugene says, our passports have become currency. Our citizenship has become balafwe. Did you guys know it's balafwe?
No.
Something cold?
Well, yeah, something, but it's cold. We have a fish in Dominica called balau.
Balahu.
Balahu, yeah, balahu, yeah. Balau meaning cold balau. That person is
yeah,
and that person saying that's so sad. Okay, John Alfred continues. How can it be possible that one buys a passport for 50,000 and their entire immediate family then becomes citizens? That's an all-important question that person is asking. We are so cheap and desperate. This is what we are now reduced to.
Right.
Okay, let me see if I could take some more comments here. Ivinia Joseph is saying, Sunday school classes. And this person has a big smile. I am learning. Daria Eugene says, only a very small percentage of our people really benefit from this passport business. Those people score big time. Billions in private coffers stored offshore. Those monies will never be accounted for. And in the meantime, we the people never see it. Adelaide Paul says they've weaponized the CBI program against the people. Let me see if I could take some names that I haven't mentioned as yet. Madeleine Moses writes, profound. These too many academias with very little analytical skills. Jeffrey Brisbane writes, good program. Eileen Vidal, good afternoon, everyone. Let me see if I could come down to some more comments in the interest of time. Let me see if I could take some new names. Ragado Agado says, Roosevelt Skerrit is not a leader. He's proven that by the trending facts. Kahina says, so we will not have the Red Clinic and NEP and Yes We Care again, and that person is crying. Okay, that's my sister from the Kalinago territory. Good afternoon to you. Dorian Dorival writes, we are exporting passports. We just not seeing the money that is coming in for it. Janet Demia writes, Mr. Mixing grapes with apples, America, London, etc. sees people accounts, but Caribbean, it is corrupted. Okay, I guess that was one or two of the points that we touched on earlier. Let me see if I could take some more names that I've mentioned before. Jeffers Joseph writes, why doesn't anyone want to call a spade and refer to the CBI/CIP program as selling citizenship is beyond me, which is what it really is. Kaina writes again, so we will never get our international airport then. Jesus wept, she's saying. We have some names that is going over and over here. I just want to skip some of them and get to some fresh names. Gina Castle says, all the government think is money. And folks, you can take a note so you can respond to one or two of them if you dare wish thereafter. Let me just see if I could get to some. Bernard Allen writes, hotels become white elephants. We in Dominica should be developing some of our own old estate houses into warm and welcoming museums where tourists can stay and live and eat with families and learn the history while they eat off the land. High-end tourism, that is called. Mm-hmm. Another comment from Wayne Mead says, Lofty, this woman from Antigua is absolutely brilliant and very fair in her comments. So Ms. Giselle had some comments coming your way here in terms of kudos.
Thank you.
Jennifer Darrow writes, people should rally against it. You cannot lease for 100 years. That means their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so on will never take over or will take over our land. That is what this person is saying. Lydia John Jules Vidal says, thank you, Loftus, for this wonderful program. Giselle, you're wonderful and very informative. And to the other speakers as well, thank you. Okay, another person's right. Mr. Astafan is on point in terms of his comments about the academia. Yeah, so that person is giving you some kudos as well. Some more comments coming in here. I'm just trying to skip through some comments. Okay, one goes by the name of Sabria Senhouse writes, they might be doing the required due diligence and still accepting the inherent risk of granting citizenship to certain individuals. That's why there should be more regulation of that industry on a whole, not regulation by the same government granting the citizenships. And I can tell you there are tons of comments coming through, but in the interest of time, we'll just take about 3 or 4 more, and then we will bring the program to a wrap in just a bit. Paul Patterson writes, I would like you to address the question of our CBI funds, unlike in the other countries, is placed under the control of a foreigner. In fact, not only does that foreigner control those funds, but that CEO of the company controls practically all development projects in Dominica. I think we touched on that earlier when Paula alluded to that earlier. Let me see if I could take some other comments from some new persons there. This person says, Shamila says, these programs are completely compromised and do not serve the best interests of the people. Investors can be encouraged to come to our homes, come to our shores, without being made citizens. Further, at what point do we as Caribbean people, in all our ceremonial nonsense and chest beating of independence, stop looking outward for every single infrastructural development and job creation and start making moves for ourselves? I think Giselle pointed that out and kind of expounded on that very clearly a while ago. Didi Easter says, Mr. Dwyer, in the case of St. Kitts, though some of the CBI money is used for political reasons, there is some evidence that the fund is circulating in the country's economy, such as the annual bonuses given to the citizens of St. Kitts, whereas the billions generated by the CBI program in Dominica that should be deposited in the consolidated fund created for that purpose sees most of this money outsourced to different accounts with no accountability to the people of Dominica. At parliamentary meeting, it was discovered over 4 billion of the CBI funds were unaccounted for. Guys, we can go on and on, but in the interest of time, you heard the comments. I don't know if you want to just, kind of feast on one or two of them.
I just want to touch on one.
Yes.
One that says that politicians only think about money. Money is essential. Even the Bible acknowledges money answers all things. However, we have to be careful that in our pursuit of money, and politicians respond to citizens, right? So we can't always say politicians are after money and they're not considering this or considering that, because very often the electorate places on politicians such unreasonable expectations, such unreasonable demands, that they go outside the box and sometimes outside of the law to fulfill those requests, but they ought not to. But we need money. However, we have to start to be realistic. We can be ambitious, we can be aspirational within the, I don't want to say confines, within the realities of our abilities. Let's put it that way. Let's put it that way. And if we would just scale down the unreasonableness of our expectations and work with what we have rather than just get what we don't have. Let us work with what we have to get what we don't have yet. I think these schemes, these programs, these threats would be minimized. I look at Cuba all the time, and I'm not saying that Cuba is not in an ideal position. Cuba suffers because of the embargo placed against it and all that. But when you look at what Cuba has been able to do, not only for itself, but for the world, for us as a region, for the world, within the confines of their own headspace and their own land space and so on, and we consider how many of our academics, how many of our talented people, and when I say talented, I don't mean just in books, in sport, in entertainment or whatever, how many of us have to leave here and go to those already rich places to make it? We need to do better among ourselves, for ourselves, and by ourselves.
Yes, indeed. Do I, anyone you want to touch on before we?
Not really, no. Just to thank the viewers and the listeners for what clearly was very full and active participation. And I just hope that at the end of it, we might be able to have inched closer to getting some solutions. It's a real problem and it requires real solutions, but the solutions do not come unless there's a change of attitude. There has to be a change of attitude, and we have to be willing not only to do the work, all of us, but to make some sacrifice. We have to make sure that our loyalties are to our country's best interests, not to politicians, not to parties, and certainly not selfish to ourselves. Okay? And once we choose that path, and many of us say we are Christians, but we don't do things the way Jesus did them. Jesus called a spade a spade. He went into the temple and cleansed it. He said, I'm not doing this for myself. He had all of the power in the world. He put that aside. He said, I don't want earthly power. That's a joke. That's a passing thing. So I think for whatever it's worth, let's look at the way he did things and maybe try to be more like that and not to be afraid to speak truth to ourselves first and to each other, and particularly to those who hold power, because they hold power from us. And one of the biggest mistakes we make in this part of the world is we elect people to office and then we give them the handle to hold and we hold the blade. It's like the tail wagging the dog. We must never allow that to happen.
Sure.
We have to do it. This is Obama said that the most important job in a society is the job of being a citizen. Stand up, agree, disagree, but let's live lovingly, respectfully, tolerantly, and harmoniously, and we will be okay. Yeah. But thanks again for having me.
Yes, Doyan, I like that note you end on there with that quote from Obama, in that always before we end our Civic Vibes program every Sunday, there's always a segment that we look forward to and our people look forward to, is the call to action segment. So it's true, we have spoken all these lovely words this afternoon. We have decried certain things, we have praised certain things, but how now? The number of persons who are viewing now, how can those words be translated now into action on their part? Any advice?
Well, I have made my call to action for the Antiguans who are viewing and for the Dominicans who live in Antigua. We are protesting on Tuesday the unconscionable hike in gas and diesel prices, especially in the absence of water. And so let us do what good citizens should do. Hold the government accountable and demand better. We can do better as Caribbean people. We must do better.
Sure. Thank you.
And I just want to remind our citizens, because a lot of us believed that when we pulled down the Union Jack that night many years ago, and we raised our own flags, that the struggle was over because we had finally arrived. I want to remind them that that is when the real struggle started, because we were now having to paddle our own canoe. The thing that Giselle is speaking about with the gas, there are lots of things that people can protest about and forget which party you support. For example, let me be very quick. The freight, because of the supply chain problems, and now this is exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine thing, the cost of freight has gone up enormously, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The governments calculate tariffs based on cost, insurance, and freight.
Yes.
So the cost to the consumer has gone up astronomically. The governments can calculate freight based, they don't even have to calculate freight. They could calculate their tariffs based on the cost to put the good alongside the ship at the point of origin and reduce the cost to the consumer. They can do something about the fuel levy. They can do something about the way they calculate VAT, which is a VAT that is calculated upon taxes. For example, you bring in a car into Dominica, say $100,000. The duty says 40%, that's $140,000. Suppose you have custom service charge of 6%. 6% on the 100, that's 146. You may have an environmental levy of 5,000, that's 151. And then you calculate VAT, not on the 100,000, but on the 151,000.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying taxes and taxes. Mm-hmm. These are things that caring and thoughtful governments will not hesitate in paying attention to. They will not get less revenue. They might get less revenue per transaction, but leaving more money in the hands of the people creates more spending and more revenue for the government. And these are the things we should be studying rather than what shirt to put on and which politician to allow to make a poppy show of us. This is what we're supposed to be doing. I have a saying here that I try to spread around in St. Kitts. Think for yourself, but think of others. That's my parting shot. Think for yourself, but think of others.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for your parting shot, as you said. Let me just give the floor now to Paula Celestine as she thank you guys for coming on this afternoon.
I want to say a special thank you to Miss Isaac, and you said to say Mr. Astapans, okay, Mr. Dwyer. I want to say special thank you to you all for such a wonderful program this afternoon. We had a number of viewers, there was much more comments, but like Mr. Dewar said, that we cannot read every one of them. So once again, on the behalf of Loftus and myself, special thank you, and hoping that we'll have you all back very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe.
All right, Paula, thank you. Thank you very much.
All the best.
All right, so Dwyer and Giselle, let me, like Paula said, you know, and on behalf of the many, many listeners and viewers watching still this program, I can tell you the traffic that was there this afternoon, the traffic guys generated there this afternoon, it was quite a bumper crowd indeed. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I know I kind of pulled you out of your Sunday relaxation / political in Giselle's Wood Affairs.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate the conversation and we look forward to another conversation pretty soon.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Giselle, nice seeing you. See you soon.
Good to see you too. See you here soon. All right.
All the best. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Lofty. Okay.
Okay.
Follow.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, folks, that is it here. That is how we want to bring down the curtains on things here. I know we went a little over 20 past, but you know, we have that latitude sometimes to go a little over because we know how these conversations normally, you know, spring one into the other or tie one into the other. So that is it for us here. It's 20 past 6. Paula, I want to thank you very much for taking time off your Sunday as well, Paula. I know you're a very busy person. You have your own to deal with, but you know, you always try your very best. So publicly again, I want to thank you, you know, your arduous work in that department. All right, Paula?
Yeah, thank you very much, Lofty. And to all our viewers who stayed with us this afternoon, ciao.
Paula to Paula to China as the people. Paula said, ciao. Anyway, people, I will say ciao as well. No, I'm not a Chinese, but I will.
Say adios, Lofty.
I will deal with Paula. I'll take on Paula. I will kind of follow Paula's footsteps. So ciao, young persons, ciao, adults, ciao, the elderlies, ciao, everybody listening and locked into the live. That is how we do it each and every Sunday. We try to maintain a level of conversation. We try to maintain a very informative and educated program. That is what I believe. That is what we believe that Dominica needs at this time, is to raise the bar in terms of the conversation. Let you hear what is happening out there. Dominica is not a little country by itself. Dominica is not in a bubble. We live in a global village, they say, and what affects or what is affecting persons out there sure has the potential to affect us here as well. So that is why we try our very best here on Civic Vibes to kind of, you know, make your world, bring the world a little smaller to you by having many, many voices out there chime in on the all-important conversations each and every Sunday right here. So as we leave here, we want to thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we just pray that the week ahead will be a very productive week for you. And you guys are very industrious people. Dominicans, I know you are industrious people. So I just pray that God give you the strength and the might to go through yet another week. So see you same time, same place next week, Sunday from the 4 o'clock hour. Please tell a friend. Please share the message with a friend that we will be live here with you, God granting us the life and strength that we need. So as we go, we will leave you with some music, as it were, so that you can make your transition easier as you go out.